guys, it's Kate here. Today I will show you how to build your own news content library in Bubble. For example, you want to stay up to date with current affairs related to a specific topic, but you simply don't have the time to browse all the news resources. Or you have to write a report or white paper about something and you want to save time doing your research. So the app that we'll make today using Bubble and an API called Newscatcher is a library or a database, if you will, of content tailored towards your preferences that will help you address these pain points. So, how do you create a news content library with Bubble and Newscatcher? Well, let's say I have a scenario where I need to write a white paper on API design. API design will be our keywords. So the first thing you do is that you create a free account with Newscatcher. With this account, you get a 50 API calls per month, and you claim your API key. So this Newscatcher API here's my key. It's not valid anymore. And then you create your Bubble app. You can see I've already done that. And what you do next is you add a new data parameter to the user, and it will be a list of texts. And let's call it news keywords. Okay, and then you go to the plugins and you install the API connector plugin. And then, as I usually do, I test the API in Postman. And so we go to Postman. I've already set it up here. And as you can see, it works okay. And these are the parameters. It's a queue for or query, which is API design, and the language parameter is English, and the country's parameter is the US. But you can also put GB, for example, if you want the UK news on the subject. And the API call is get newsapi.newscatcher.com/v2/search, and you have the parameters. And the only header you need to put in is the x-api-key. So as you can see, it works fine, and we have a bunch of results. Now, let's configure our Bubble API to show this data in a nice way. So we go to plugins, and you add a new API. Let's give it a name, for example, Newscatcher. And specify it will be shared header, and it will be a header which is x-api-key. Copy it and we paste it. Okay, so that's our shared header, and now we create a new API call. We use it as data. It will be a JSON, and let's call it, for example, our news. And so we give the name, and then again you enter the same parameters. So it will be this parameter. Okay, so we will get, and we add some parameters here. So the key is Q, the first one, and let's say API design. And the next parameter is LAN, which is EN, English. And the next one is country, which would be US or United States. And you can also add other parameters which are specified in the documentation of Newscatcher API. It can be specific sources, or if you want to, you can exclude specific sources like the BBC or points in time from which you want to start your research. For now, I'm happy with these parameters. So let's initialize this call. What's something is wrong? So I got the wrong parameter, so it should be countries. Yes, so now it works fine. Now we go back to the design tab and we add an input field somewhere. Let's call it keywords. Put keywords, and it will be text input. Then we add a little button on the page. Let's call it generate my news. But we're not doing any workflow on it yet. Now, let's create a repeating group on this page. And the type of content will be our news article, our API. And the data source will be get data from an external API. So the API provider is Newscatcher -our news, and the query parameter would be the input. Yes, so it will be dynamic data input keywords value, and this it will be articles. Now let's also sort it by publication date. Sorted by publish date, descending is. Now let's add some content to this repeating group. First, let's start with some text, and it will be the article's title. And let's also add a little excerpt so that we can see a short summary of what this article is about. Excerpt, yes. And here we can add the name of the author, and that's nicer. So author, and to make sure that we know the source of this article, let's add the source as well. In this API, it's called rights. And if you want, we can also add the publication date. Publish date. And finally, let's add a little icon on the left. Let's add a newspaper icon. I really like this one. And let's add a workflow to this icon. And this workflow will be open the external site, which is the current articles link. So the user can click on this icon if he or she wants to read the article in full. Now, let's go back to this Generate My News button and add the workflow. Step 1 will be make changes to user, and changes field. It will be news keywords. So that's the parameter we're changing. Now, the reason we did this as a list is that some users might want to keep an eye on several topics at the same time. In part 2 of this tutorial, I will explain how it's done. So if you want to follow more than one topic, keep an eye out for the next video. For now, let's just add input keywords value. Input keywords value to the news keywords list. Now, for step 2, we want to display the data in the repeating group. The repeating group, of course, will be the one we set up earlier. And the data source will be our news. Now it will be get data from external API, sorry. So it will be Newscatcher, and the parameter for query would be the result of step 1. Let's say current users news keywords, and the English language and the country is the US. So let's keep that as is. That will be our news articles. So now that's done, let's test this. So we already have some default API design news here, but let's say we want to make changes to the user, and API design as this workflow. And let's say generate my news. So there you go. Here's a list of news related to API design. Let's have a read of the first one. So it's a convention bit. Yes, I agree. And yeah, so it works very well. And you can do the same with, you just go back and other sources if you want. So yeah, that's a very simple way to build a content library. And if you ever need to write a white paper or something, you can get all kinds of news from Newscatcher using Bubble and some parameters. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and stay tuned for part 2.